Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I'm Bruce Harber. I'm the Chief of Police at the University of Memphis and Assistant Vice President for Administration. I'm here not only representing my institution, but also representing the TBR institutions, the 46 institutions that make up TBR. I am also the chair of the Campus Safety and Security Task Force that was recently formed, and our charge is to make recommendations to the board by the September meeting. The task force has gone on record as opposing this legislation. TBR has one explicit priority, and that's student success, and we feel like we have to provide a safe and healthy environment to meet that goal. I've been in law enforcement for 41 years now, I believe, 25 years with the Memphis Police Department, and then the last 16 in campus law enforcement. Shortly after Columbine in 1999, I was one of the early trainers who began training police officers in West Tennessee how to respond to high-risk incidents. And by high-risk incidents, I'm talking about situations such as active shooting events. Several of us, the University of Memphis included, our crime rate is about 2 to 2.5 times below the national average. And I'm not talking about just campuses, but the overall national average. And we think that is largely because we do not allow guns on campus. And again, therefore, we oppose additional guns on campus unless they are held by highly trained police officers. Mass public shootings are rare on campuses. Using the definition that those shootings result in the deaths of 4 or more people, from 2005 through 2015, there were 10 that occurred at schools, on average less than 1 a year. 6 of those were at colleges, and that's including the Umpqua Community College in Oregon last year that we're all familiar with. If this legislation passes, we see that faculty will be the most vulnerable in a classroom, whether they decide to carry or not, because they would be the only possible person in there with carry options. And there are some experts that will tell you that one of the active shooter mindsets is to take out the first possible threat, being someone that may be armed, be it a police officer, security officer, whoever that might be. Additionally, last October, the Washington Post reported that since 2007, there have been at least 29 mass shootings where the perpetrator was a concealed carry permit holder. I'm not here to criticize the vast majority of permit holders. They are law-abiding, but they're not infallible. Of those 29 cases, 2 occurred in Tennessee. I won't go into the details unless you need them, but there was one in 2010 in Cheatham County. There was one in 2012 in Powell, Tennessee. And then outside of Tennessee, one of the most, noteworthy was in 2013, a Texas-issued permit holder shot and killed 12 people, and then himself at the Washington, D.C. Navy Yard. He also had a prior permit from the state of Virginia. The effect on the campus environment is that we think that more weapons on campus may result in more frequent lockdowns, disruptions to the academic mission, and may adversely impact student success. Under the current structure, if someone is seen carrying a weapon on campus, police are notified to respond. The campus is more than likely going to be placed on lockdown, and emergency notifications, which are federally required, are sent. If faculty and staff are allowed to carry, we have some questions. How will others know when to report a firearms incident to the police? How will the police need to respond? Will they do that as if it is an emergency situation, lock down the campus, and issue a Clery Act required timely warning? And then the question is raised, what about our 5 community colleges and 24 TCATs where they have no police officers or armed security? Who will enforce any violations if only faculty and staff can be armed? One thing in particular that concerns me is that more armed people on our campuses will change our responses to threats involving weapons and active shooters. As I mentioned, I've got a long training resume in police training. I was actually the commander of the Memphis Police Training Academy at one point. Prior to Columbine in 1999, we would secure and call for SWAT. That's the primary reason it took 4 hours and 11 minutes before the first officer entered Columbine. Under current law, the only person other than law enforcement who would be armed is the intruder. With faculty and staff being armed, responding officers will have to secure each weapon and person that they encounter before moving forward. Just a couple of quick quotes. At the 2013 gathering of the International Association of Chiefs of Police in Philadelphia, the U.S. Attorney General, quote, urged police to react more quickly when confronted with an active shooter and to engage the shooter as quickly as possible, end quote. Then the following is an excerpt from a 2013 Police Magazine article written about 2 months after the Sandy Hook tragedy occurred. Quote, during an active shooter event, you are dealing with a very brutal equation. Time taken by first responders equals casualties. One of the largest body counts from an active shooting incident so far is the Virginia Tech University incident in 2007. Depending on which after-action report you read, the attacker shot an average of 8 people and killed 2 every minute. We have to get in quickly and end the killing, end quote. Today, under our current practices, the first officer's role is to move toward the threat and at least keep the threat contained. Encountering armed people and securing them along the way will add significant time to the goal of rapid response. Our 2-minute scene times will be of little value if we can't get to the area without delay where people might be in harm's way. A consequence of this legislation is we don't really know if concealed carry permits on campus will produce the desired effect of preventing or stopping infrequent mass shooting events. But what we do know is law enforcement tactical responses to potential armed threats will be adversely effective. I and one of my colleagues at Roane State have reached out to our local FBI trainers. They agree that we will no longer be able to follow the national model developed by the FBI, which is the first officer goes toward the sound of the threat. This will drastically slow down our responses when literally every second matters. In closing, under the current laws, our police officers have a clear response plan. They know what to do immediately. If this legislation passes, it will put our responding police officers in even more challenging situations involving more life and death decisions. As a campus police chief, I'm responsible for everyone's safety on campus, including the officers. I'm here today because I take that charge seriously and personally and passionately. Thank you.
Thank you. You're recognized, Representative Beck.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief, are you saying that by having these guns on campus, that in case of an emergency, this is going to add confusion to the operation plan that you have in place for these type of emergencies?
That's correct. Under Clery, we're required, there are 2 sides of Clery. There's emergency notification, which is any kind of threat that has to be done immediately. Could be weather-related, armed intruder, whatever. Crime doesn't have to have been committed. Then you have the timely warning. For example, if you had an active shooter or a homicide, you would have to issue a timely warning also. So it's going to put us in situations of if we get a call that, or a tip or a text or however we get it, that there's someone in a classroom or building with a weapon, we're going to have to respond not knowing if that person is a permit holder, faculty or staff, or someone that's there to do harm. And where it really gets complicated is we trained 405 officers on our campus over spring break. City, county, federal, university. We train to respond together so that we have common training, following that FBI national model. We might know who registers with us. I've been there 16 years. I know a lot of the faculty and employees on site. That Memphis police officer or Shelby County Sheriff's officer that may be responding with us is not going to know those individuals. So it's just going to further confuse and complicate what needs to be as rapid a response as possible.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.